Kashey here, and right now I want to talk about one of the more crazy torture devices that are being employed these days. It is probably one of the biggest thieves of our autonomy, the ability to make our own decisions. And oddly enough, it is the calendar. The calendar tells people to do things and then they just do it. It's amazing. And it's interesting how people can turn their entire lives upside down because of a different day on the calendar, and that's really what I want to discuss, is that it's amazing how much it dictates your freedom. As for whatever reason the world doesn't operate the same way, the calories don't count, that there isn't 24 hours that people still have to work. I don't know. There are quite interesting changes in behavior at certain times of year, certain times of the week, or certain times of the day. Although I suppose that'd be a clock rather than a calendar. It's quite amazing what sort of behavior the calendar dictates just because there's a big square on your desk that has a number on the top right corner. At least mine does. It must say, look, everything you normally do, don't do that shit right now, because I am this number on the top right corner and I am all powerful. This is all too common in situations where people have really big days. Sometimes those days are special events. Sometimes those days are holidays. Shoot, sometimes those days are just Tuesdays. Should you be celebrating? Absolutely. Should you be partaking? Absolutely. Is there a reason to act like a complete ding-dong the entire day just because? Negative. When you're thinking ahead of the day, what meals are special during that day for your family and you? Do you all focus on breakfast more? Or do you all focus on dinner more? Or brunch, perhaps? I know some families like brunch. Flies. Maybe it was told by its calendar to attack me. In any case, chances are if you have 3 meals and 2 snack method, or just 3 meals, or whatever sort of scheduling you use, then I seriously doubt all 3 meals of the day are going to have a huge focus. That being said, it's perfectly fine to rearrange your schedule around whichever meal your family focuses on the most to keep things groovy. Maintaining a similar schedule and food choice outside of whatever the meal focus is a great idea. Not necessarily amounts, but timing and choices. You can always shift some amounts around. And if you are trackability, then you can shift some calories around to give you a little bit more of a buffer during the meal. Just realize that a lot of people think that they can end up basically fasting, and then when they get to the meal that they want to eat a little bit more at, they just end up going completely crazy. So I don't recommend fasting, but smaller meals that leading up to it are I think reasonable. And this is doubly true when the meal is filled with what I would consider controlled substances or celebratory foods or whatever, that you'd be more likely to overeat if you're starving anyway. So you can have whatever meal your family focuses on with your family and partake and be reasonable about it because you're giving yourself that buffer. So if 1 or 2 meals or snacks are taken up by the holiday meal, great. That leaves you with 2 extra meals during the day. Presumably if you follow a 3 meal, 2 snack method, then you have fun foods that you can consume and foods that you normally don't eat during other times of the year. Post-meal cleanup also deserves its own note. If you're going to be cleaning the dishes and packing up the rest of the food and putting it in containers and giving it to other people and putting it into the fridge and freezing it away, it's an opportunity for you to snag an extra meal without realizing it. Chunky chunkies here and bitey bitey's there. If it's still a priority to continue to consume those foods, then this is a perfect opportunity for you to pack yourself a plate for the next day. The logistics surrounding leftovers can put you in a precarious position, and having a plan like that ahead of time is going to go really far, especially if you're mindful of when you consume. Making sure you sit and eat in a quiet place, not snagging and nibbling while you're standing and making your rounds, cleaning up. You can have enough food packed for a few days in advance. It'll work out just fine. Once all that stuff is packed up and you've portioned out what you need, this is a perfect opportunity to do something like go for a walk, or maybe take everybody for a walk with you. I'm sure they would love that, right? Half serious. Allow things to digest and spend time as a family or spend time as friends. And whatever cravings you do have during that time will end up dying down. So generating a plan for a large event or a big holiday will not be as hard as you think. And by scheduling ahead of time, you'll know how you're going to handle your eating during the day, and think about previous behaviors you did in years past, how you will change them this time around. But how will you change them this time around so you can participate and not feel deprived? You got to throw down the hammer on skipping meals during the day, basically, to make room for a larger meal later. Fasting is not an effective option because you will end up overeating. Make sure that when you do eat, you're actually sitting and that you're paying attention and you understand what you're eating, like chewing with your mouth closed and swallowing when you don't have an entire whole uneaten parts of food in your face. And operate with the understanding that a plate of food is reasonable, a single serving of dessert is reasonable, and that 2 of your snacks during the day can be used with new and exciting foods that you don't have to eat at other times of the year. And if you decide that you want to continue eating these foods and packing away doggy bags for yourself to last maybe the next couple of days or so after you have that meal, will work. When everything has been packed up, try and drag everyone's ass out around the block for a while. It'll be nice. Let the food settle, the satiety index will go up, and you will feel more satisfied in comparison to another time where you just continue to be surrounded by the hyperstimulatory foods that you'd snag even if you weren't hungry. And you will be infinitely more satisfied with the meal you had with your friends and family, and and any cravings you would have normally had will go away. Recognize and give yourself credit that staying on track requires vigilance, and you have to be active about it. And when you do it, that's freaking awesome. Sweating the small stuff is going to be really important and a great opportunity to start new traditions and look back and not regret the way you acted, and at the same time not feel like you deprived yourself either. You got it. You're doing it.